Welcome to this video where we're going to be exploring making a dice, which is our first movement into multiple extrusion. So your classroom teacher will have shown you the dice example that we're going to be building, which as you can see involves a six-sided die with a number of surfaces where there's been material removed. The type of material removing is a spherical shape, and we can see here from the drawing we've got a number of measurements, so we can actually see our diameter is 20 on this, and we're going to need to remove that to a certain depth. So first thing we need to do is to draw a square, which is 25 plus 50 plus 25, which gives us a total of 100 width. We're going to extrude that out on our screen. So let's start with doing that. I'm just going to drag that across the side so you can't actually see what I'm doing there, but I've got it on my other screen. First thing is to go File, New. We'll call this one Dice. Make sure it's a part. You've got your working directory already saved and go OK. Now, given this is the same on just about every surface we've got, our original drawing showed it drawn on the top view, so I'm going to go Top, Extrude, and we know that we want to draw a square. So I'll just draw it here, it won't really matter. Just make sure the lengths are both the same, so we've got that L symbol appear. Click and then click again. Go to our Select tool, and here we'll adjust our measurements. So we know our total width was 100 because we just did that a moment ago. From the distance from the edge doesn't actually matter at this particular point because we're not adding, we're only drawing our 3D object and removing material in a minute. So once we've got that, we can go OK. And remember, of course, it's a 3D object, we want it to be 100 in the depth as per our drawing. And that should give us a perfect cube. Now bring our original drawing back in. Notice that our rounding edge is 10, so we need to do our rounded surface, which is a tool that we've been practicing previously. So to do that, we can tick off here because we're finished. Go to our round tool, and our rounding measurement was 10. So we go 10, enter, and of course we need to click on each corner to actually do that. So it'll take a little bit to do that. I'll just quickly do as many as I can. Clicking on the edge, rotate it if you need to. Can be a little bit time consuming doing this. Nearly finished. And our last corner. Once you've got to that point, you can tick that off. And you'll notice if we look at this now, we have our basic design of our die, which is up here with our nice rounded surfaces. Now, what we'll find here is that we're using every angle. So we've got our top view, a left view, front view, right view, back view, and bottom view. So you need to make sure you get these correct. Your final design should match up to what we're actually getting here. We'll start with a nice easy one, which is on our front view, which is a round part here, exactly in the middle. So the middle of that is going to be 50, and our diameter is going to be 20. So to find that, we can come up to the options at the top here, go to front, which will align it for us straight away. Hold down the shift, middle scroll across, and we know we're going to extrude on this surface. Once we do that, shift and scroll so I can get that back in the middle of my screen. We can use the circle tool, which we know is going to be in the middle of this object. So click on that, click off, click our select tool to get some distances. Now what we could have done is we could have gone through the center point here, which was an option, and by doing that we could have got our measurements to work a little bit better, but we don't actually need that. We're going to get rid of this measurement here and we're going to work purely from the side, and I'll show you in a moment how to change that. Now it's hard to see, but if we go to this measurement here, we want to change that to 20, so double click, 20, enter, and our distance from the bottom is 50. I was actually very close to being from the bottom. And what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that measurement in a moment. To do that, click on the normal tool, middle of the line, and we'll go right to the edge and middle scroll click. and we can then put in a measurement of 50. That has now perfectly aligned the circle in the middle of that front view. Once we've done that, we can go OK. Now remember, we need to round the edge of this surface to actually remove. So there's a couple of measurements you could do. So if our diameter is 20, what could our round be? We could do a few different things. Sorry, that's actually our depth. I'll take that back. So if our depth is 20, we'll go a distance of 10. We can always change this if we make a mistake. So once we've done that, oh look, so that comes out that far. We actually want to remove the material, so we want to go the other way. And you can tick that. The last step we need to do is to actually round the points. So if we come into this, this is where it gets tricky. You need to actually come right into this line here. So hopefully I can make a mistake so you can see the error. So click on the line, and as soon as I've gone to 10, you'll notice that I've got my die perfectly in form. So it's very important, those measurements. So 10 is the number that we're looking for. Once you've done that, you can tick. We've got the first side of our die done. I'll do one more side just to give an example, because the measurements do get a little bit more complicated after we've done that. So let's have a look at doing, we can pick any surface we like that has the measurements on it. Let's go with this one just at the top of the screen here. So we're going to do the 2, which is on the top view. So we're going to be, the middle of our circle is going to be 25 in on those sides there, and also at that bottom corner. Right, let's move here. So we go to this tool here, go to our top view, which will rotate the die. Now of course that goes off screen. It is still there, you can scroll out. Remember, I know it's just up here. Come up here, scroll in so we can see it. We're going to extrude on this surface, so extrude, click on that surface. Now if it does rotate outside of the view, you can of course bring that back so that you can actually see it. I must have it quite small. Come in a bit. Go to circle, and we're going to draw 2 circles. And we know roughly it's one's here. Click here, and we know there's another one down here. So we'll click. Keep the R's the same, which means the radius is the same. When I adjust one, the other will do it. Click off. Select tool. Adjust our radius to 20, which we've done. And now we've got all these measurements here. Now I showed you before how we can actually adjust those measurements. So what we're looking for is the middle of our circle to be 25 here, 25 here. So we need to get a measurement that goes from the center here to this edge line, and also here, and then repeat it on that other side. So it's a little bit of mathematics that does get involved. It is sometimes easy to work from a printed design rather from the screen. You don't really want to try and switch between the screens too much. It will make it a little bit more complicated. So if you find it easier, do print out a copy of the sheet or ask the teacher for a copy, and you may find writing on some of the measurements will actually help you a little bit. So once we've got this one here, let's put in some additional markers. So we're going to go from here to the edge line, middle scroll, and if you remember our distance was 25, and we're going to repeat that at the top, middle line to the edge, middle scroll, and we're looking for 25 as well. Repeat down here, middle line to the outer line, middle scroll, click, 25. You'll commonly make a lot of mistakes when you're doing that and make an error. Let's try it again, middle to the outer edge, middle scroll, and 25. In this particular case, it's replaced those reference lines. It really depends how you draw it on the plane as to what it's going to look like. They look correct, so once we've got that, we can go OK. Same as before, our depth is 20, and we want to remove the material, which is that feature there. So as it says, the default option has now been switched. So just be careful, that can swap around. If you're unsure, just rotate it to the side by holding down the middle scroll and rotating to one of the sides. We'll tick that off and repeat again with our round. Now it should have saved our default measurement of 10, which it has. We're looking for that inner line. So I'm just going to make a mistake because I want to show you what will happen if you do the wrong thing. So we've now got our die, just quickly, has been formed into roughly the right shape. But what you can see here that is different to our first one is that our depth here is nice and round, which is quite good. But there's obviously a mistake here. You can see that it's going in quite a long way on our depth. So I've made a mistake there at one point. You can make some adjustments here to put it back. So what I want to do is just change that back to 10. Show you some of the features you can do to get that die looking correct. So we've gone too deep. So what we can do is go to our third extrusion, which is that feature there. And you'll notice it highlights green, which is sort of indicating that we've got that feature selected. And you have section 1 and you've got the extrude. Now what you can do is to right click, change to our dimension, which starts giving us some measurements on the screen. So that one has given us where we've actually drawn it out. We can go to our next tool, which actually shows us our depth that we've got. I'm just going to tick that and put that back into play. And then we've got our section 1. I just want to show you the differences between them. So we're just right clicking, turning back on our drawing features. This was our very original one that we had drawn at the start. That was our first circle that we've drawn. So there's a couple of stages that it does go through when it actually does draw. So if we're looking at our depth here, we can adjust this. If I go 10 for example, that brings it in a little bit closer, and that will actually give us our die, hopefully. That looks a little bit more accurate. And if you look at that and turn it onto the sides, I might just zoom out a little bit, you'll start to see that our die is looking a little bit better than what it did originally. It's just a matter of getting the depth correct, adjusting any of the measurements that you need to, and remembering that you can go back and actually undo a step if you've made a mistake anywhere along the line. If you've got any other questions, just so your classroom teacher, just follow the video very closely. The first step, I'll just undo that and I'll just get rid of some of these. If you do make a really big step, you can right click on extrude and go delete. Delete it completely out. Rotate to our single die that we've got over here, which we've got. You can just delete an extrusion. Now, if you do there is a stage where you can actually copy these surfaces. It's probably a little bit too advanced at the moment. Really, the feature we want you to get to grips here is working on the measurements, adjusting, and working with the rounded edges part to actually get that smooth concave surface. Working on each side will actually take some time. It may actually take you more than a lesson, so it is a good homework task to practice on. If you can master this, it's really going to help you when you start to want to add material to the object and build a very unique shape.